Today, I'm so excited to announce we have Milana Sarenac, who is the host of the Magnetic Podcast. She is an incredible sales coach. She's a corporate lawyer turned six-figure online entrepreneur. I have done multiple of her programs. We're so excited to learn from you today. Hello, Milana.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I want to give you all the intro,
that was an awesome intro. I'm like, keep going.
Yeah. So we're just going to dive straight in because Milana is like the queen when it comes to all things sales and marketing, especially for coaches. And I have learned so much from her. If you don't follow her on Instagram, like go wait for this video to end and then go follow her because it's all so helpful. Something I've heard you recently talking about is having a product suite. Like every coach or online business should have some sort of product suite. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So a product suite is essentially where you have multiple offers that you can sell. And these offers ideally do not clash with each other. So the goal is that someone enters your world and they kind of ascend through your product suite. They ascend through different offers from not necessarily the lowest ticket to the highest, but from the the micro transformation to the major transformation. And this is how you can best serve your audience, best serve your ideal client, and obviously maximize your profits.
Yeah, I love that. And I love how you say like micro transformation to macro transformation, because that is what every single one of your offers is. It's a transformation that you offer. And even if I think about like the names of your offers, right? You have like sold out bootcamp, you push that transformation. And then people from there, it starts with 5-figure DMs, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So you have 5-figure DMs, and then which I did. And then I did sold out bootcamp, right? And so I went to that next level with you. And then the next level would be Empowered Sales Academy or ESA, right? Which I'm already like, I would like to buy also. So that's the power of a product suite. Yeah, that's amazing. So when you say they're separate, how does somebody kind of decipher is there like a strategy you have in terms of deciphering like different product suites, different pricing? I mean, that's a lot. That's a big question.
Yeah, it kind of is, but I'll condense it because it's actually not that complicated. The goal of the product suite is exactly what you said. Like you want someone to go, I have all your stuff. I'm in all your offers. And I have people message me that all the time. And the reason why that happens is because each micro transformation ideally leads them to the next thing. So like you said, you were in 5-figure DMs. So like that teaches you how do you sell in the DMs. Then when you sold in the DMs, you're like, cool, I can sell people in the DMs, but how do I get them into my DMs? Like, how do I get them there? And then you're like, wait, I think I need sold out bootcamp. That's going to get people into my DMs. And it ascends that way. Now, when you're thinking about the pricing, so that's how you think about your offers.
So they're all they're somewhat related, but just they're different transformations.
Exactly.
They all kind of relate.
You go, the way I would go is like, what's a big transformation I can offer someone? And what are the steps in that journey? And then you break it up and you go, this is offer 1, this is offer 2. So when they know this, then they can move on to that, then they can move on to that, and so forth, right?
Yeah.
And it makes so much sense. And sometimes people will more likely buy those micro offers versus like a massive big offer that like teaches everything at once, because they're only ready for that first step. And that's why a product suite works so well. And then when you're pricing the product suite, you want to go, well, for this transformation that I'm offering for this particular offer, what is the price? What is the right price? And the way I do pricing is not super, super strategic, right? I don't do market research. I'm not like trying to do any like charts and figuring it out. I'm like, what feels good? What do I want to charge? What is also a good pricing contrast with the rest of my product suite? So I'm not going to charge like 5 figures for my mini little offer and then have the same pricing for my mastermind. So I'm always going to have price contrast happening. But other than that, like one strategic thing, I'm like, no, just what feels good? What actually feels good for me to offer the transformation at this price point?
Oh, I love that. That is all super helpful. Wow. Oof. Yeah. I'm like thinking of all the ideas in my own business, and I'm sure other people listening are too, right? Kind of thinking like, how can you tighten up your product suite and really take people through those transformations all together? Because that's not what a lot of coaches teach, which is what I love about you is like, you have such a system, and I see it all like on the daily, right? I see you selling your stories. I see that you really are like a master of your craft. And that's why I still recommend people go follow you, because you see it in action and I mean, on my end, it looks so flawless.
I love it. It's working. The system's working.
Yeah, it does. For sure.
What I'll tell you guys about a product suite, the best thing about a product suite is that when you have a product suite, you have people ready to buy your offers as you launch them. So as you kind of decide to sell your higher offers, you're never stuck in saying, who's going to buy this? I have no idea who wants to buy this, because you have all these people that have gone through the bottom level of your product suite through micro transformations who are now ready for that bigger transformation. So when I see people struggling to sell like their high-end offer, I'm like, no, like if you just had a product suite, this wouldn't be a problem. And that's not to say you can't have one offer, but there is so many benefits to having a product suite for sure.
Yeah, especially when they do have that connection kind of, right, those segments of then like that biggest transformation, you're able to, especially when people can't afford your highest, right? It does, like it kind of gets their toes in the water and they see how much value you can provide.
Exactly. Yeah.
Ooh, love it. All right. So you work with coaches and entrepreneurs all the time. What is like the most common mistakes that you see people make when trying to sell their products and services?
Yeah. Okay. So I would say like these are super common, and I did the same things. Everyone does it. But the biggest thing is that they don't sell. People do not sell enough. That would be like the biggest mistake. And it sounds obvious. And most people are like, no, I sell all the time. I'm like, no chance. Because the thing is, someone needs to hear about your offer like 12 to 21 times before they're ready to buy. And if you are not repeating your offer, your message every single day, day in and day out, people are simply not getting to the point of conversion, and then they're not buying, and you blame yourself. You're like, it's me, no one wants my stuff, but it's not. It's actually that you haven't talked about it enough. So that would be the first thing that I would say. Definitely talking about your offer more, selling it more, and really describing the transformation. The second thing is the features. Like people love to sell what the features of an offer are. So they're like, I have a coaching program and it has 5 calls and we have like 10 modules, and everyone's like, and I do not care. That is not doing anything for me. And so you really want to talk about, when you are selling, you want to talk about what someone is getting out of the transformation versus what they're getting just as part of the program. Right? Like what is the A to B that they're going to be transformed with? So they're not getting your 5-module course on dieting. What they're getting is a healthier lifestyle, more energy, time with their kids where they can be more present, looking good in those jeans that they haven't been able to fit into for the last 5 years. Like that's what they're getting. And that's what people want. And then the third thing is really talking to people's wants versus their needs. And that's related to what I just said, but that's probably, I would say, one of the biggest downfalls is that we go on there and we talk to like, what does someone need? We're like, you need to learn how to, diet, and you need to learn how to exercise, and you need to cut your macros or whatever, like all of these things that I hear. I'm using a fitness example, which is not a great one because I'm not like an expert in this, but stay with me. And people are like, I don't want to do any of that stuff. Like that sounds so boring. What they want is the things that I just mentioned. They want to fit into their jeans. They want to look good when they go out with their partner. They want to feel confident in their body. That's what they want. And so if you start speaking to the wants, you're going to get a whole lot more attention, a whole lot more people being like, okay, this is for me. I need this in my life.
I love, that's so true too with YouTube, right? And when we're doing our market research of like even writing titles, you give people what they want. And then in the actual video, you can give them what they need too, but you don't package it like that, right? Because then you're not going to get any of the clicks, or you're not going to make the sales.
Exactly. Yeah. It's all about the packaging, right? It's all about the packaging. Same thing with sales.
Something that I struggle with a lot still to this day that I have to constantly remind myself is like, people care about the transformation. People care about the transformation. And I think that it's not it doesn't come natural to push the transformation. But once you start doing that, you realize you just sell so much easier.
Yeah, 100%. And it's more natural to talk about what's inside, because that's the easy part, right? Because we're like, I don't know what the transformation is. That's hard. I can't talk about that. So we're like, it has 5 modules and 3 calls and we're done. And that's why we default to that. But if you can consciously get away from that, and honestly, I rarely even talk about how many modules or lessons are in a program or what's in there. Like, it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. Who cares if it's 5 modules or 3? As long as I can get you the transformation, you don't care, right? You're not like, well, you can get me the transformation, but it's not 5 modules, therefore I'm not going to sign up. Like, what? No, of course not. So it's really like, that is what people care about. That's what you care about as a consumer as well when you're buying.
Wow, that is, are people writing this down? Write this down. Milana, I am a huge fan of Sold Out Bootcamp. I'm in it. And Sold Out Bootcamp is maybe not being offered right now, but get in on it when she is offering it, and you'll know because you'll be in her stories. But what is your top tip for coaches and entrepreneurs to sell on their stories?
I love it. Okay, so stories is where I make the majority of my sales. It really is. I love stories. They're so good. They're so engaging. And I'm going to mesh up a couple of things in one, because I want to give you guys all the juice. So the first thing I would say is, when you are about to sell on your stories, if you just go in with the pitch, if you hop on your stories and you're like, hey guys, I have this thing available, sign up, you're going to hear a whole lot of crickets, most likely, right? Unless your audience is super hot and you've been talking about this for a while. So one of the big things is to actually tease the offer before you start to talk about it, which means that instead of just hopping on out of the blue one day and being like, I have this program, and everyone's like, what's this now? We're going to tease it. Same way when a movie's coming out, right? Back in the good old days of cinema, I haven't gone to the cinema for so long, but when you used to go to the movies, the movie would be teased for ages, right? You get little snippets, and then you get the trailer, and then you get a second trailer, and then, everyone's talking about it, and it's on the like E channel or whatever. And then you go and you watch the movie, right? Because you're like, I'm sold. That's what you want to do in your stories. You want to start teasing your offer ahead of time. And when you finally get there, you're like, okay, I've been like teasing what's coming, and you're ready to sell it. When you are ready to sell it, instead of just hopping on and being like, hey, here's the offer, really lead in with a story. If you can lead in with a story during that pitch, it's going to engage your audience so much more, because our brain is way, way more receptive to storytelling than it is to sales pitches. So when you start off with a story, you open up someone's subconscious mind, which just means they're receptive to you. They're listening. They're like, okay, tell me more. And then when you have their attention, you can go in with the pitch, with the, this is what I'm selling. And by this point, they're actually listening. They're tuning in versus being like scroll, 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 and kind of swiping through you. So that would be my top tip for selling on stories.
Oh, wow. Yeah. It's so cool to hear you say that, because I've been watching you tease ESA. Right. Yes. And even right now, when you talk about it, right, it's still 11 days until it's open.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is so true, that being able to see that I've never heard that analogy of like the trailer. I think that is super helpful. You're right. Getting kind of that hype up. Most of the time, I feel like people will talk about their offer just only for like a tiny bit, and then boom, it's just right into selling. So I love that idea of teasing it out and then really using storytelling to get people to listen to you.
Yeah, exactly. And like the length of the teasing, which is what I call a sales cycle, really depends on your audience, how warm, hot, and receptive they are. So if you're brand new, you're going to have to do this for a longer time, right? And like in ESA, I give people timelines. I'm like, if you've been around for this long and you've been showing up this much, then you've got to tease and hype for this long. And if you are someone though that's been showing up every single day and your audience is very hot and warm and they're used to you selling, then you can shorten that period of time. But I still to this day like tease for weeks on end, because I'm like, well, let's just get people hyped up. And I get so excited about my offers that I love talking about them. And that's how I feel like is probably one of the big things about sales, is that when your energy is there and you're excited about it, people can get excited about it. So that's also a crucial bit to not skip, because people are like, give me the strategy. But I'm like, no, hold on. Here's a strategy, but also let's line it up with energy as well.
Ooh, yeah. So let's transition it into the energy to end.
Yes.
I was just listening to your podcast episode. You should definitely check it out. I can link it. I'll link it down below in the description. You just came out with a podcast on just like all the money affirmations, right? That's what it was. Money affirmations,
yes.
Wealth, abundance, mindset. So what do you think? What do you think is like the key to staying in abundance mindset during a launch when selling? Because that's something that I launched recently, and it was really hard to stay in abundance mindset, because a lot of people, they sign on at the end, right? Like so many people are just gonna, right when doors are closing. Like I even had people that signed up, doors were closed, so how do you allow yourself to stay in abundance mindset and not get discouraged when you're not getting as many sales as you thought in the beginning?
Yeah. So here's the thing. I always say to my clients and to myself as well, when I'm selling, I'm like, when someone doesn't buy on day one, it doesn't mean anything, because remember we talked about, like, you got to talk about this thing like 12 to 21 times. So when you're in your open cart and your launch, I'm like, until the very end, I'm not going to make anything mean anything. So that's my kind of rule number one. I'm like, no telling myself stories of like, oh, it's been 3 days and no one's bought, and that means that I suck and no one wants this or whatever, right? So like no stories. And then the second thing is that when it comes to a launch, one of the big things that I do to stay in abundance mindset is I tell myself that everyone has already said yes. And I show up as if everyone has already said yes. So instead of showing up feeling like I need to convince people and like I need to make them buy and I need to get them to the end line, I'm like, in my mind, all my perfect clients have already said yes. And all they're waiting for is me to show up and to really just like give them the information, give them the inspiration to take the leap. So that takes the pressure off me showing up. I'm like, not trying to show up from a forced energy of like, let me make you buy this. Like, let me convince you why this is a good thing. I'm like, oh, they just need me to lovingly guide them, right? They already know they need this. They already said yes to it. And as soon as I show up, they're going to go, oh, of course. Okay, here I am. And that's just one of the little things that I do, the kind of rules I set for myself during launches to keep me in that mindset. But the most important one is not telling yourself stories. Like the stories we tell ourselves are our downfall. So when we get into a launch, that's really when the brain goes crazy, high wire. It's like we make everything mean something. And another thing I actually tell my clients is look for evidence that it's working versus evidence that it's not working. So a lot of the times we're like, well, I posted this story and no one replied, or I did a poll and no one replied, or like I sent an email and I've got no sales. And so we're looking for evidence, like it's not working, it's not working, it's not working. And the thing is, during a launch, let's just say your conversion rate is like 3%, which is like a standardish conversion rate. That means that 97% of people are saying no to you. 97% of people are not buying. And if we focus on the 97% that are not buying and we're like, oh, no one's buying, the 97% are going to say no, we're going to get in a really negative mindset. Versus if we're like only focusing on the 3%, we're like, these people are buying and that's all that I care about. And so always looking for evidence that it's working. Like I sent an email, no one bought, but 30 people opened it. It's working, it's working, it's working. And that's how I really think that you can get through a launch. And if you implement these little mindset shifts, your next launch is just going to feel so much better. Yeah. And if it feels better, the results are always going to be better as well.
Definitely. And that energy, right? If you're feeling like things are going well, you just bring more to you. And that definitely, it's a spiral when you do think about, because that's exactly what happened to me last launch. I was like, oh, this could have been better and this could have been better. And I didn't convert as well as I thought I would here. Right. And I had the best launch I've ever had. And yet still somehow I had to teach myself to like
So funny.
Get
how we
out
do
of there,
that.
you know? And yeah, and it took like a very conscious effort. I think if I didn't have my VA, I would have been, I would have gone crazy, but it's because I've let myself go down this rabbit hole. And so it's something that I am going to take that advice, and I'm going to do that this next launch. And I think it's just going to allow me to sell a lot better, but also just feel just like it's just going to all move so much smoother, and I'll be able to bring more clients and more money into my business and make a bigger impact.
Totally. 100%.
Milana, I would love if you would close it. Do you have a favorite affirmation that you say to yourself on the daily?
One of my favorites, the ones that I say often, is my work is of high service and worthy of massive compensation. So this isn't actually my affirmation. This is something I learned from another online coach called Amanda Francis, and it just resonates so much with me, and I love it. And I say that often, especially when it comes to sales and showing up and really feeling good about what I'm putting out there and how I'm serving people and impacting them. And then the other affirmation that I get everyone in ESA and literally all my clients in any program to say is sales is service. Sales is service. And when I sell, I serve. And most people have these big blocks around sales. So I really make sure that everyone like ingrains them, tattoos that onto their hand, whatever they need to do to understand that sales really is service.
I love it. Everybody say it with a sales is service.
Yes.
All right, Milana, thank you so much for being here today, and we'll see you in the stories.
Thank you.
Bye.